My niece is a natural beauty. My sister-in-law dreams of her marrying into a wealthy family, so she kept my niece out of school, bound her feet at home, and raised her to be a traditional woman. I hurriedly intervened, taking my niece to the big city for her studies. Later, through her relentless efforts, my niece was admitted to a prestigious university and secured a job with an annual salary of several 100,000 yuan, yet, she pushed me off the building and killed me, just before my death. She cursed me with a face full of resentment and venom. You're just jealous that I'm younger and prettier than you, and you don't want me to live a good life, so you brainwash me every day to be independent. I've already started secretly binding my feet. When I return to my parents, I'm sure I can marry into a wealthy family, which will be 10,000 times better than working a job like this. After being reborn, I pushed away my tearful niece who was begging for my help. Duo. They are your own parents, how could they possibly harm you? Our Duo is a natural beauty, she doesn't need to suffer through studying. As long as she stays home and behaves like a traditional woman, she can marry into a wealthy family. Once these little feet are bound, our family's good days will come. In my ears, my sister-in-law's sharp, calculating voice echoed. I had been reborn, returning to the day my sister-in-law was preparing to bind Fong Duo's feet. At this moment, the sister-in-law's remarks seemed absurd to those around her, and they all began to try to persuade her, but the sister-in-law was stubborn by nature. Once she had made up her mind about something, she would stick to it with unwavering determination. No one could change her mind. At this point, someone thought of me. Let Wenyan speak. He's the only college student in our village. In an instant, everyone's eyes turned toward me. 10-year-old Fong Duo also looked at me with tears streaming down her face. In my previous life, out of concern for my niece, I explained in detail the harms of foot binding. Not only will it deform the foot bones, but it can also easily lead to diseases. Once the feet are bound, one will have to live with heavy foot binding cloth for the rest of their life, making normal movement and daily life impossible. Finally, after persuasion from me and those around us, my sister-in-law decided not to have Fong Duo's feet bound. Later, concerned about the poor education in the village, I even brought Fong Duo to the city and enrolled her in a good school for her studies. Fong Duo was indeed clever, catching up with the learning progress in a very short time. She worked hard step by step and was admitted to a prestigious university. After graduation, she smoothly found a job she loved. After a few years of hard work, she successfully received a salary increase, and her income multiplied several times. Watching my carefully raised niece embrace a bright future filled me with immense satisfaction. It wasn't until just before my death that I realized I had been wrong all along, terribly wrong. Fong Duo had always hated me. After moving to the city, I dared not get married or take time off work, all to take good care of Fong Duo, doing everything possible to provide her with food, clothing, shelter, and transportation, but it always falls far short compared to the wealthy. Whenever her classmates around her use the latest phones or luxury items, she recalls her mother's words. She begins to fantasize about what it would have been like if she had bound her feet and married a wealthy man, becoming a noble woman. Under the accumulation of daily frustrations, Fong Duo gradually grew to hate me. I once thought she was just introverted and not close to people. Little did I know she was an ungrateful wolf that couldn't be tamed. Despite my day and night care, it was no match for the empty promises her biological mother made to her. I thought that by teaching her to study, I would help her understand reason and free her from the fate of foot binding. Yet, I never imagined that while she was learning the most advanced knowledge, her mind was still filled with futile dregs. She even secretly bound her own feet in private. But she failed because she was too old. Resentment turned into murderous intent. Finally, the day came when she found her opportunity. Taking advantage of my dizziness from low blood sugar, she pushed me down the stairs. It was at that moment I realized she had always hated me for ruining her chance to live the good life as a traditional woman marrying into a wealthy family. It's a pity that I only saw the true face of the niece I raised with my own hands just before my death. Now that I have been reborn, I will never interfere with her fate again. Having made up my mind, I pushed Fong Duo away, looked at her shocked, tear-filled eyes, and replied with a smile, Duo, they are your own parents, how could they possibly harm you? In this life, I want to see if you can really become a noble lady and live your good life. After the farce ended, my sister-in-law announced that she would bind Fong Duo's feet tomorrow, at the dinner table. She even said that according to the videos she had watched, as long as a girl has small feet, she is bound to catch the eye of a wealthy man. I chimed in from time to time, which pleased my sister-in-law immensely. The frail Fong Duo huddled in the corner, lost in thought, occasionally casting a cold, knife-like glance in my direction. She must have grown to hate me again. How laughable, too afraid to stand up for yourself, yet blaming others for not helping you. I pretended not to notice and continued eating my meal. At night, a rustling sound came. I suddenly got up and shone the flashlight toward the door. It was Fonduo again. Fonduo looked timid, her beautiful eyes brimming with tears. "Auntie, I really don't want to bind my feet. Please, can you talk to my mom for me?" I interrupted her before she could finish, replying expressionlessly, "Why don't you stand up for yourself?" Faced with my question, Fonduo paused for a few seconds. There was a hint of innate malice on her face. "You're my aunt, you should help me, you're an outsider. If you offend me, I'll make sure you can't even go home." My refusal angered Fonduo. That pretty little face now wore a malicious expression, exactly like her mother's. My efforts have never been acknowledged by her, yet a single rejection makes her resent me. I hardened my heart and locked her out. Fonduo kicked the door a few times before leaving reluctantly. I thought I could finally get a good night's sleep, but just a few hours later, I was abruptly awakened. I sorted out the sequence of events amid my sister-in-law's curses. Fonduo had run away, and my sister-in-law found a note on her bed. A few lines were scrawled on it. "Auntie said foot binding would harm me, so she told me to hide. I'll come back when Mom decides not to bind my feet. I'm going to listen to Auntie." I looked at the note, a chill creeping up my spine. Fonduo was once the person I trusted most. Even after she caused my death, I still felt a pang of sympathy for her younger self. Now I see that some evils are innate. Seeing me frozen in place, my sister-in-law flew into a rage. She pointed at my nose and started yelling, "You bitch, I knew there was something off about your sudden kindness. You did this on purpose. I bet you can't get married yourself. Can't find a man, and now you're trying to ruin your niece's life." I suddenly realized that from beginning to end, Fonduo most resembled her biological mother. The same cursing, the same viciousness, shifting all the blame onto others. In my previous life, after I took Fonduo away, my sister-in-law immediately had a second child, completely forgetting about her own daughter, never gave a single cent, never sent a single piece of clothing, yet every time I brought Fonduo back, she would act more affectionate than anyone else. I once noticed that she would say something to Fonduo when I wasn't around. Every time after that, Fonduo would give me the cold shoulder for a few days, but since they were all family, I didn't press the matter further. Looking back now, I realize she played a part in my death in my previous life. I looked at the woman before me and suddenly smiled. "Sister-in-law, don't rush. I'll give you an explanation right away. Fonduo has been found." I gave the location. My sister-in-law, half believing and half doubting, listened to my words and immediately took people to the old house behind the village. Half an hour later, Fonduo returned. The scene was different from what I had imagined. She came back on her own. Although Fonduo returned with the appearance of a child, her every word and action carried the demeanor of an adult. I held my breath. I was certain when I saw her waiting with eager eyes for her sister-in-law to bind her feet. Fonduo has also been reborn. Seeing the obedient Fonduo, sister-in-law began to bind her feet. As she increased the force, I could even hear the sound of bones beginning to twist, but there was not a trace of pity in sister-in-law's eyes. Instead, there was a kind of fervor. It seems that as long as she bound her daughter's feet, she could gain everything. Fonduo cried out in pain. But she refused to give up. Because she was already older, her sister-in-law had to be even stricter. Using the harshest method, she twisted Fonduo's feet to the extreme, making them look like chicken claws. "If you want the most beautiful 3-inch golden lotus feet, you have to be even more ruthless. Duo, this is all for your own good, so you can live a better life," Fonduo said through gritted teeth, her voice filled with excitement. "Don't worry, Mom. I will definitely marry into a wealthy family." Watching the mother and son, both seemingly lost in their obsession, I silently turned and walked away. This is the good life you'd rather give up everything for. Take it slow. Ever since my feet were bound, Fonduo's eyes were filled with light, because at first, I couldn't get out of bed. My sister-in-law would sit by the bed every day, describing the life that lay ahead. The mother and son were like madmen, their hearts and minds consumed by the idea of marrying into wealth. They ignored the mess in the room and the sour stench of the foot-binding cloth. Once Fonduo was able to get out of bed, her illiterate sister-in-law began teaching her the so-called family rules. Preparing to be a wife in the future, you must kneel and pay respects to your father-in-law and mother-in-law every day, 3 times a day, for 1 hour each time. After marriage, you must obey whatever your husband does. Even if he takes concubines, you must maintain the dignity of the primary wife. Women are not allowed to be literate or manage accounts. If a woman has her period, she must not be seen by others. If she is seen, she must punish herself with a whipping. Having a child must be a boy. My sister-in-law made Fonduo recite these absurd family rules day and night. Even my brother, who usually pays no attention to anything, noticed something unusual. I wanted to say something, But each time I was shut down by my sister-in-law. What do you know? This was given to me by the master. Duo has had her fortune told by the master. She has the face of a noblewoman by nature. As long as I guide her properly, I can guarantee she'll be introduced to wealthy people by the master. Meanwhile, Fong Duo was buried in her studies, working hard, using my previous life's experience studying at a prestigious university to learn these absurd family rules. I wish I could carve them on my hand. Over time, my brother also started believing in that so-called master. He began enjoying my sister-in-law's kneeling foot washing service. He started acting like an emperor at home. I thought all of this was just their delusional talk, but I never expected the wealthy person they mentioned to actually show up, and they really brought several boxes of gold with them. The whole family excitedly waited at the door early with Fong Duo at this moment. Several brand new luxury cars, accompanied by a group of people, arrived at this peaceful small mountain village. Sister-in-law's face flushed with excitement. The master mentioned by sister-in-law was an old man who looked like an immortal with an air of transcendence. After inspecting the bound feet of sister-in-law, he nodded in satisfaction. He left a box of things and then walked away. The heavy box, whose contents were unknown, was directly locked in the room by my sister-in-law. But how could Fong Duo miss the chance to show off? The next morning, she proudly came to my room, wearing a gold bracelet on her wrist. My dear aunt, do you see, I'm about to marry a wealthy man. This is the betrothal gift personally delivered by the master. As long as I diligently memorize those family rules, I can achieve my wish. As for you, you'll be stuck struggling as a low-level worker in the big city for the rest of your life, even if you come begging me like a dog. I won't care about you. Under the sunlight, Fong Duo's beautiful eyes and brows were filled with madness. At this moment, her face was full of satisfaction. I glanced slightly at the bracelets on both of her hands. Sure enough, they looked dazzlingly golden, yet carried an unreal texture. If nothing had gone wrong, they were probably all fake, but I didn't say it out loud, just looked at Fong Duo, who held her head high, and asked, "Zhao Yan, are you sure you want to live this kind of life?" My words made Fong Duo pause for a moment. The name Zhao Yan was given to her by me in her previous life, right after I brought her back to the city. It was simply to help her forget the unpleasantness of the past, to start a new life in a new place. The future is radiant. My words made Fong Duo pause for a moment, but then she rolled her eyes at me. Would I give up a good life to suffer with you? A dull ache throbbed in my chest. After adopting Fong Duo, I was constantly afraid of not providing her with a good life. Out of my monthly salary of over 20,000, a portion went towards her school tuition, tutoring, and various extracurricular activities. Another portion was used to satisfy her material desires. I have never refused her as long as she asked. If you won't even buy me a diamond necklace, what's the point of pretending to love me? Fong Duo continued. It suddenly dawned on me, that's how it was. Back when Fong Duo was in college with a monthly allowance of 5,000, I did my best to provide for her. I would generally buy whatever she wanted, but at that time, I had just lost my job. If I bought that diamond necklace, her travel plans for the next month would have to be postponed, but I never expected such a small rejection made her remember it for 2 lifetimes. I silently hardened my heart, preparing to no longer care about her and move on to the next step. Fong Duo, however, thought I was admitting my own unreasonableness and arrogantly demanded that I hand over the money and house to her as a dowry. You delayed me for so long in your previous life, so consider your savings and house as compensation for me. I looked at her increasingly ugly face and smiled. Great, you are my own niece. Who else would I give my money to if not you? Don't worry, from now on, all the money I earn will be yours. I'm counting on you to live a good life. My words left Fong Duo somewhat stunned and doubtful. I continued to smile. What are you worried about? You're a future noblewoman. How would I dare offend you? Fong Duo's inner suspicions were instantly washed away by my flattery. She turned and left with a proud air. Of course, she wasn't completely at ease with me. I climbed through the window and saw my brother guarding the door to my room, and I understood. Fong Duo was still so clever, she would never let her guard down until she got what she wanted. But I won't play with you in this lifetime. I walked through the muddy ground, carrying my suitcase, just like in my previous life, except back then, Fong Duo was by my side. She kept chattering away, dreaming about the future. She said she wanted to be like me in the future, study hard, become a college student, and live her own little life. But now, she has cut off her own dream from her past life. I wiped the sweat from my brow. The person ahead has been waiting for me for a long time. The visitor was Wang Jejia from next door. Having lived through a past life, I already knew her fate. Her parents died early, leaving only her grandfather to accompany her. After her sister-in-law's second son was diagnosed with supermasculinity, Wang Jejia became a target. Life was already difficult for the grandfather and grandson. She was targeted again for refusing her sister-in-law's marriage proposal. Her sister-in-law cut off their electricity and even poisoned the chickens, ducks, and geese they used to pay for tuition. By the time I finally returned to the village, Wanjejia had been tormented beyond recognition because of the years of slander spread by my sister-in-law. Unable to find anyone to help her, Wanjejia passed away after warning me to be careful of Fongduo. The sound of Grandpa Wan holding the frail Jejia and crying was the most desperate sound I have ever heard, so in this life, I decided to take Wanjejia with me. While Fongduo didn't want to leave the mountains, there were others who did. Wanjejia's bright, sparkling eyes looked at me, reminding me of the girl from my past life, whose eyes were filled with stubbornness. My heart was filled with even more courage. Holding her hand, we walked along the mountain path in early autumn. At this moment, the sun was just beginning to rise. Each step sank into the muddy earth, yet we faced the sun and walked toward the light. Jejia gently tugged at me. I turned around and saw a light on a distant hill. Only my past self and Fongduo knew about this path. I turned and left with Jejia, without looking back. I wonder what Fongduo is thinking at this moment. That flashlight stayed on for a very, very long time. 10 years later, Jejia successfully got into her dream university. Coincidentally, it was the very same university that Fongduo had attended in her previous life. I have also worried whether my educational approach might produce another Fongduo, but Jejia has never been the kind of ungrateful person that Fongduo was. She always quietly appreciates my help. Moreover, she has never complained about her life, diligently and earnestly living each day to the fullest. The path paved with sweat may be hard, but it is your own, and no one can take it away. She always kept her grandfather in the countryside in mind and would earn money during winter and summer vacations to send to him, perhaps because Wanjejia left early in this lifetime. Although her sister-in-law still gave birth to a son with supermasculinity, she didn't have time to bring harm to the Wang family. I never went back either. Ignored the message Fongduo sent me, even more so. I moved right after returning 4 years ago and decisively changed all my passwords. Looking at Jejia now, not only is she not as frail as in her previous life, but she also has a bit more of a robust beauty. In this life, under my guidance, Jejia has developed a love for exercising. Only with a healthy body can one have the strength to resist. And now, we are going back. I brought Jejia back to the mountains. The village remains exactly the same as it was 4 years ago. I also met Fongduo. For years of foot binding had reduced her feet to the size of a palm. She could hardly even walk normally. In pursuit of marrying into a wealthy family, my sister-in-law had been diligently serving Fongduo. Again, following the so-called family rules, they only gave Fongduo half a bowl of white rice each day, hoping to mold her into a frail, easily bullied beauty. Her brother initially tried to persuade her, but Fongduo insisted on it herself. She even went so far as to diet on her own. He had turned himself into a gaunt, skeletal figure. His once handsome brows and bright red lips had become slanted brows, vertical eyes, and purple lips. There was no trace left of the charming cuteness he had as a child. Moreover, due to the limited conditions in the village, Fongduo's feet, after being wrapped for a long time, continuously rotted, healed, and scabbed over. In summer, maggots would even breed. Anyone around the Fong family would smell a foul odor as soon as they got close. But my sister-in-law seemed to be under a spell, constantly saying that her daughter had 3-inch golden lotus feet, a treasure beyond compare. She even encouraged other families to follow her example and bind their feet. But over the years, those so-called gold bracelets have long since revealed their true colors. They are silver-black. The so-called betrothal gold was all fake. That master has long since disappeared without a trace. Everyone around thought my sister-in-law's family were fools, and no one was willing to bind their feet. Yet my sister-in-law waited in vain, and even Fongduo refused to acknowledge the truth. Seeing me return, Fongduo wanted to mock me even more. But because she had been lying down and not eating enough, not only did she not show any sign of being a beauty, she didn't even have the strength to get up and mock me, can only lie rigidly in bed. At this time in her previous life, Fongduo, who had just entered university, was still a youthful and beautiful military training pacesetter. Not only was she fair-skinned and beautiful, but also talented in many ways. She attracted much admiration. Looking at Fongduo before me, I couldn't see a trace of remorse in her expression. Did you come back to return my house to me? Seeing her unrepentant attitude, I instantly lost the desire to speak and turned to head back to my room. Come back, let me tell you, everyone loves my small feet. I'll soon become a wealthy lady. I warn you, hurry up and give me the money in the house. Fongduo called out to me at the top of her voice. Faintly, I heard the sound of something falling behind me. I pretended not to hear and never looked back. I just didn't expect to see my super masculine nephew so soon. Fong Duo somewhat resembles my brother in terms of good looks. My nephew, on the other hand, looks exactly like my sister-in-law. He doesn't look like a 10-year-old child. His height is unusually tall, and he appears more like an adult. He is currently in my room, rummaging through my luggage. "What are you doing?" I looked at him, feeling a bit scared inside. In my past life, I had heard quite a bit about this super masculine nephew. "What's wrong with me taking a look, you worthless thing? All this stuff is mine." As he spoke, my nephew tore my wallet to pieces. There was nothing he wanted inside, which only fueled his anger further. "I'm warning you to hand over the money quickly. My mom said you, this worthless burden, took my money. If you don't give it back." Before my nephew could finish his threatening words, I kicked him away. Over the years, it wasn't just Jeju who had been training, I had been too. Even a naturally irritable supermale is just a 10-year-old child. The indulgence of those around him made him think he was invincible. Now that he's met me, I show no mercy. I threw him out the door in one go, packed up and ready to go help Jeju move her grandfather. This trip is to get Jeju to take her grandfather to the city for retirement. I thought all of this would end soon, and I could go home early and leave Fong Duo. But things took a turn. That so-called master has actually returned. He brought along a middle-aged man with a beer belly. The master kept muttering that the auspicious time had arrived, while telling the sister-in-law to prepare Fong Duo for the wedding. Those fake betrothal gifts were just to test her sincerity. "Don't worry, our boss is a descendant of royalty. As long as you listen well and add a dowry, we guarantee your family will rise to prosperity immediately." My sister-in-law was initially a bit hesitant, but after seeing the red banknotes in the several large boxes brought by the master and the so-called boss, she immediately went home to pack up for Fong Duo, because they had to catch the auspicious time. I just happened to have the time to watch this farce. The beer-bellied boss looked at the villagers surrounding him and spoke fluently in an unknown dialect. "I am a true noble of royal descent. If your daughters follow me, I guarantee your whole family will become relatives of the imperial family." After saying this, he even flaunted the watch in his hand. The villagers couldn't understand it, but they flattered him anyway. After all, the impact of those several large boxes of cash just now was too overwhelming, and what reason would this boss have to deceive people in this poor mountain village? Boss kept bragging about his wealth and luxury. He occasionally threw in a few English words. Fong Duo sat on the side wearing a red dress, looking like a gentle and obedient wife. Her face was unusually flushed with a healthy glow. Curiosity stirred within me. "Boss Ju, I heard you mention earlier that you own several properties in the capital. Would it be convenient for me to ask about them? I can help look into it." Boss Ju immediately fell silent. Then, turning around, he shamelessly said, "Only country bumpkins buy commercial housing. People like me hire our own designers. Do you understand design? That's all done by artists." As his saliva flew toward me, I quickly stepped back. Boss Ju also fell silent, because the food was served. The so-called big boss and master looked as if they hadn't eaten meat in 800 years, frantically grabbing at the food. Even the villagers around were stunned. Yet, my sister-in-law was still immersed in the excitement of being a royal relative and didn't notice. Fong Duo also pretended to be a shy bride. Lowering her head and smiling, from time to time, she would cast mocking glances my way. I smiled without saying a word. The banquet was halfway through. My sister-in-law began to ask Boss Ju when he would give her the betrothal gifts. Boss Ju wiped his greasy mouth and spoke with the satisfaction of a full meal and good wine. "We have family rules here, which state that we must give them only after the wedding. Mother-in-law, don't rush just yet." Seeing that the boss, Mr. Ju, who was older than her, called her mother-in-law, my sister-in-law didn't find it strange at all. She even obediently prepared the dowry. After confirming that she couldn't get any money from me, she stared at me with a sinister look for a long time before leaving, and I have no idea what method she came up with. By evening, Boss Ju looked at Fong Duo, his whole body brimming with excitement, but all of that changed. The police cars arrived, to the shock of Boss Ju and his men. They were taken away one by one. My sister-in-law stared in shock at the scene before her. Fong Duo, even more anxious, reached out to stop them, but her body was too weak, and she tripped and fell to the ground after just one step. For a moment, some were bleeding, some were crying and shouting, and others were fleeing in panic. In the end, all the con artists except for the so-called master were caught and interrogated. The truth has finally come to light. It turns out that the reason these scammers didn't show up for the past 10 years wasn't because they were waiting for some auspicious time, it was simply because they had just been locked up. Now, having just been released, they remembered their loyal follower and headed straight to the sister-in-law's house. Perhaps the master never expected things to go so smoothly. The noblewoman's appearance he casually mentioned was actually believed by someone. Those so-called family rules, which made Femme Duo persist in footbinding for 10 years, were all lies spoken by the con artists. The last time they were arrested was for deceiving a family into believing their son was destined to be an emperor, while selling the children they had tricked. They also swindled money, originally. My sister-in-law's family had already escaped disaster, but she just couldn't let it go, looking for a master everywhere. The master's gang, just out of prison, happily came to deceive her. Boss Jew and his gang were arrested. Those so-called several large boxes of cash were all practice banknotes. Boss Jew was not some royal descendant either. Just a homeless man from the neighboring county who came after hearing there was food and a place to sleep. As for that ethereal master, he had long since learned from his last lesson and fled. He took all the savings of my sister-in-law's entire family and ran away. After my sister-in-law failed to get money from me, she decisively turned to borrowing from loan sharks, mortgaging the family's land and fields. I was hoping to strike it rich. Now everything is gone. The whole family is about to be kicked out. My sister-in-law stubbornly believes it's not her fault, blaming everyone else. I was naturally the first to be targeted. But by the time she came to me for compensation, I had already run away. I thought I would never have any interaction with Femme Duo again, but then I saw her at my doorstep. She had gained a little weight, and there were still traces of farm work on her. The whole person was tan dark. It seems my sister-in-law has completely given up on her dream of getting rich overnight, but Femme Duo doesn't seem to have yet. She looked at the villa behind her, her face full of resentment towards me. "You're clearly very wealthy. You've been lying to me all along in your previous life." I shrugged. "I am indeed very wealthy in this life. After all, we've both been reborn, and starting a business by keeping an eye on market trends is always possible." Femme Duo seemed to have just realized she had also been reborn, and her rebirth should have created more opportunities for herself. She, however, was lost in the dream of being a so-called traditional woman marrying into a wealthy family. In the end, she ended up being scammed by a fraudster, losing everything she had. Femme Duo took a deep breath. "Do you really think you have no responsibility for the way I am now? If you still try to stop me like you did in my past life, I could have gotten into college, and even if I didn't become wealthy, I could have lived a happy and peaceful life." I revealed a mocking smile. "Didn't you always hate me for changing your fate? Since you wanted to bind your feet and become your noble lady, I naturally let you have your way. Why are you blaming me now?" Femme Duo's contorted face showed a hint of pain, as if recalling some humiliating past. "How was I supposed to know my mother was a lunatic, that those people were all liars, that this whole thing was a scam? In my past life, I was brainwashed by her all along, and I really thought you were the one who stole my good life." I looked seriously at this unfamiliar Femme Duo. "No one can steal your good life. You gave it up yourself, Femme Duo. It was you who wasted your own good life, time and time again." My words didn't make Femme Duo understand. Instead, they made her start to rage. "It's your fault. It's that stupid woman's fault. I'm not wrong. My good days were taken away by you." After shouting, she suddenly became excited. "Yes, it's all your fault, especially yours, so you have to make it up to me. You owe me, Feng Wenyan. You must give me all your house and money. Consider it your atonement." I took off my sunglasses, feeling speechless, and finally called security to have her thrown out. Fortunately, the security in the newly chosen community is very reliable. Such a lunatic will never get in again. Amidst Femme Duo's screams, I turned and walked back into my brand new mansion. I no longer paid any attention to Femme Duo's family, but the news kept coming in, one after another. My sister-in-law had taken out a high-interest loan, and after failing to reach me multiple times, she was forced out of her home in the bitter cold. A lifelong wish turned out to be a scam, which has already dealt her a heavy blow. Now, she has been swindled out of all her money. Even if that master is caught, the money cannot be recovered. Her once stubborn sister-in-law has become even more stubborn. She poured all her hatred onto Femme Duo on this winter day. The family of four lived in a dilapidated old house, huddled by the fire, with snow leaking through the roof above them. Femme Duo was kicked out by her own mother to find so-called food, or washing tattered clothes by the river in the bitter cold. Her unbound feet could only move slowly, nearly freezing her toes off on this cold winter day, but her sister-in-law no longer felt sorry for her, often insulting and beating her. Femme Duo, who had never done so much work before, was about to go crazy. Upon hearing that her sister-in-law intended to sell her to someone else, she immediately ran to the police station overnight to report it. Her sister-in-law and brother were arrested overnight. The charge was suspicion of harboring a murderer. The murderer was none other than Chashum's nephew. As early as a year ago, a little girl in the village had mysteriously disappeared. Only a bright yellow sandal was left behind. Everyone thought it was an accident. Even the parents who loved their children could only helplessly wipe away their tears and move away from the village. They left the place of sorrow to start a new life, but Fonduoduo always knew it was no accident, because under her younger brother's bed, there had always been a bright yellow sandal. On that night, she also saw her parents throwing something into the well behind the old house, but she always pretended not to know. Even later, when she heard her younger brother repeatedly saying he wanted to strangle all the worthless girls, the news quickly spread throughout the village. The little girl's body was found in the well. The young nephew could not be convicted, but the sister-in-law and brother were guilty of harboring a criminal. In the end, the entire family ended up behind bars, just before being taken away. The sister-in-law's eyes were filled with murderous intent toward Duo. She was heartbroken that her own son would suffer because of the snitch, yet she felt no remorse for the little girl who was killed. Fonduoduo used the attention from this incident to portray herself as a victim persecuted by her own family. Those deformed feet became her ticket to fame. For a time, she went viral across the internet. Brave exposure of the demonic brother, pitiful victim of a dysfunctional family. Every time she went live, countless people tipped her, and some even donated money for her treatment, but she never had the intention to live her own life in peace. When the hype reached its peak, a trending topic about the evil aunt shot to the top. The entire video portrayed me as an accomplice to foot-binding, depicting me as someone who secretly persecuted my own niece and even described me as a money-obsessed lunatic who cared nothing for family. At the end of the video, Fonduoduo, with her somewhat innocent and delicate face, shed a few clear tears, pretending not to dare mention my aunt's name, yet a few blank accounts lured me out in the comments under the video. It's obvious at a glance that they're hired trolls. Some are even stirring up the pot, a family of demons. I always said with such a demonic nephew, what kind of good person could the aunt be? Even her own niece has been persecuted to this extent and she still doesn't help. It must be intentional. The online arguments came in wave after wave, but I didn't take it seriously. But Fonduoduo refused to let it go. After noticing that I still had no reaction, she immediately sent a second one. In the video, she accused that when she was 10 years old, she had a good opportunity to go to the city to study hard, but her neighbor's younger sister snatched the chance away. Her life had been tampered with by someone. This time, it was the same old trick as before. And the alternate accounts in the comments section dug up Wang Jejia, but the few attempts to steer the narrative were quickly suppressed. They were replaced by skepticism instead, because Wang Jejia had already contacted the villagers and the police when I was being slandered, and she edited the interviews into a video. The 15-minute video contains a description of the other party's family. It also includes the police's overall briefing on the case. There was never any so-called forced foot-binding or any stolen fate. All of this was orchestrated by Fonduoduo herself. Those Water Army accounts were also discovered to be operated by her. Her original supporters were even more vocal, demanding refunds and turning against her. The police acted even faster, taking Fonduoduo in for investigation on charges of spreading rumors and cyberbullying. This farce quickly faded away due to the emergence of a new one. I couldn't help but feel a bit helpless. Clearly, they could have lived a decent life by relying on self-media, but they insisted on trying to harm me, ending up with empty pockets and facing a lawsuit. Money and luck that exceed one's understanding will eventually disappear. After Fonduoduo was released from prison, it seemed as if she was poisoned, continuing to bind her own feet, even going so far as to seek out that charlatan master and be with him. After a moment of hesitation, I remembered the agony of being killed in my previous life, opened my phone, and sent a message. Sure enough, Fonduoduo's fate was too tragic. Driven by a morbid and twisted mindset, she did not report the master but instead continued the scam. She selected new targets in a new village. After deceiving the children, she would abduct and sell them under the pretext of nurturing them into distinguished individuals. Upon seeing young and beautiful girls, she would persuade others to bind their feet. Under her acting skills, many people were deceived. At the moment when the scam was about to cause tragic consequences, the police suddenly arrived. With the help of my message alert, they successfully captured the long-fleeing fake master and Fonduoduo. Those children were also successfully rescued. The entire scam process resulted in no casualties, except for Fonduoduo, who broke her leg while trying to escape. What awaited Fonduoduo was a lengthy prison sentence spanning several years. Under repeated blows and compounded by childhood malnutrition, Fonduoduo looked like a ghost of a person, as if she could die at any moment. Her multiple requests to see me were all politely declined. I didn't get to see Fonduoduo for the last time. I was busy with the company's business. Wang Jejia also graduated successfully and chose to become a vocational education teacher. Aunt Wenyan, I want more children like me to be able to leave the deep mountains. I have often wondered what my future would be like without you, how dark and hopeless it would be. I have thanked you 1,000 times for coming into my life. I nodded with a smile. I did my best to help her, with Jejia and me by his side. Jejia's grandfather, who had mourned her death in the previous life, passed away peacefully in this one. Before his death, his clouded eyes were filled with reluctance to part with Jejia, as well as gratitude toward me, as the New Year's bell rang. Everything came to an end, and at the same time, everything was reborn. After hearing the first story above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Next, there is another similar story. Let's continue to see. My sister got pregnant before marriage, gave birth to a baby boy in a small clinic, and then disappeared. The doctor found my home based on the address she left behind and handed the child over to me. My parents begged me on their knees to adopt him. And just like that, I, an unmarried young woman, struggled to raise the child. After finally raising the child, my sister returned, accompanied by a wealthy man wearing a gold chain. She held her son and cried, saying I was jealous of her, that I had stolen the child and separated them. My son resolutely cut ties with me and threw himself into her arms, while my parents drove me out of the house. The neighbors condemned me with their words and writings, and in despair, I jumped from a building to end my life. When I opened my eyes again, I had returned to the day my sister gave birth. Just as dawn broke, my front door was knocked on, startling me into a cold sweat. In my previous life, it was at this very moment that the clinic doctor loudly knocked on my door, waking up all the neighbors. In front of them, he handed me the child and scolded me, saying I was irresponsible for giving birth. Later, I found out it was my sister's child. My parents begged me to keep the baby, and since I had no intention of getting married anyway, I agreed. But later, I deeply regretted the choice I made back then. Hearing the sound now, I couldn't help but shudder. I got up and opened the door, only to see a familiar face. Song Lin, you gave birth to a child and then abandoned him. You should know that abandoning a child is illegal. The neighbors had all gathered, craning their necks to watch the commotion. I stared at him, and the next second, I took off my slipper and slapped it right across his face. You shameless old thing, how dare you try to scam me right in front of my face? I don't even have a boyfriend, let alone a child. Have you ever seen a new mother who can fight like this after giving birth? Do I look like someone who just had a baby? My series of actions left the doctor stunned, and it was then that our neighbor, Aunt Huang, snapped out of her daze. Yeah, San Lin goes to work every day, and I've never seen her with a big belly. Could it be a mistake? I recognize him. Isn't he the doctor from that clinic on the street? I stood with my hands on my hips and scolded, you shameless old man, running a shady clinic and coming here to pull a scam. Call the police. Call the police. When I said I was going to call the police, the doctor panicked. I won't argue with you. I grabbed his hair. You may not argue with me, but I can't just let you run away like this. After saying that, I called the police. Hello, 911, someone is trafficking babies. Don't talk nonsense. If you don't explain yourself clearly in front of the police later, I'll smash your clinic. Heaven gave me a chance to be reborn. And all the grievances I suffered in my past life are now being fully vented. By the time the police arrived, they saw the doctor holding the child, bruised and battered. Meanwhile, I was in my pajamas, slipper in hand, fuming with anger. All the neighbors gathered around. After hearing what had happened, the police lifted the child in his hands. It was indeed a newborn, with the umbilical cord still attached. What's going on here? Tell the truth. This is the address and name left by the patient. He pulled the medical record out of his pocket. The police saw that the address was indeed mine, and the name matched mine as well. I crossed my arms and said, I don't know, and I have no idea who used my name to have a child, trying to make me the scapegoat. As soon as the words fell, my parents, who had been silent all along, appeared. Lin, since you don't want to get married anyway, why don't you just adopt the child, Mom, Dad? What kind of talk is that? How can I just casually adopt a child of unknown origin? I have no idea what his parents do for a living. What if they're drug addicts? Those bad genes can be passed down, and I certainly don't want to raise an ungrateful brat. My parents were left speechless by my words. The doctor standing nearby looked displeased and shoved the child directly into my arms. This is your family's child. I'm done with this. Tell Song Shui that she can raise her own son. If I had known your family was so unreasonable, I wouldn't have come. Instantly, the room erupted in murmurs. Everyone now knew that this was my sister Song Shui's child. That's nonsense. First, you said it was my child, and now you're saying it's Song Shui's. Do you have any proof? Without evidence, you're trying to dump this child on our family. Officer, I strongly suspect he's involved in child trafficking. After saying that, I stuffed the child back into his arms. then crossed my arms and refused to take any further responsibility. Mom was shocked beside me. Lin, Mom and Dad, don't be so naive. There are so many scammers out there these days. And Huang also chimed in, old song, don't talk nonsense. This doctor first said the child was Song Lin's, and now he's saying it's Song Shue's. He's just spouting nonsense. Yeah, who knows where they got the baby from. The doctor immediately jumped up. Huang Mingzhong, never lie. How many years have I been running this clinic? Would I deceive anyone? It was clearly last night when your sister, Song Shui, rushed to my clinic, begging me to deliver her baby. I still have her pawned phone here. After saying that, he took out the phone from the bag he was carrying. I looked and confirmed it was indeed Song Shui's. My dad and mom were also stunned. This was now a done deal. It was undoubtedly Song Shui's child. The neighbors started discussing among themselves. Song Shui is so young and already has a child. Whose child is it? Who would have known? Usually, you can't even see her figure, and she always wears loose clothes. I never expected she was pregnant. Who knows which troublemaker she got involved with outside? You're talking nonsense. My daughter is perfectly fine. This time, my mother jumped up. If you keep spouting nonsense, I'll tear your mouth apart. Wang Mingzheng looked disdainful. Song Shui said that after giving birth, I should bring the child to your house and let her sister raise it. Officer, I even have a letter written by Song Shui herself. After saying that, he took out a letter from his bag. In my previous life, there was no such letter. Even when Song Shui returned and harshly criticized me, Huang Mingzheng jumped up to speak up for her, ultimately driving me to my death. This bastard is no good person. Huang Mingzheng curled his lip. If I had known, I wouldn't have come. What bad luck. Seeing this, the police officer also sighed. This is your family matter, handle it yourselves. I grabbed the police officer's arm. This is not a family matter. How can you conclude that my sister gave birth and ran away just based on a phone and a letter? What if she dies at the clinic? The police thought it made sense, so they immediately escorted Huang Mingzheng to the clinic. My parents followed along, and I quickly packed my bags. There was no way I could stay in this home after I came out. A neighbor saw me and asked, Song Lin, where are you going? I'm moving out, that way, when the child ends up in my parents' hands, I won't have to be the one to raise it. Song Shui had a bastard child herself. I can't be responsible for that. Can I? I'm not even married yet. If my future in-laws see this, they might think I was the one fooling around. They nodded repeatedly upon hearing this and said, You're right, Song Lin. Think about yourself and go quickly, poor thing. Song Shui is really bold too, running away right after having a child. Who knows if Huang Mingzheng killed her? That can't be. I didn't care what they were discussing and hurriedly ran off. After my parents came back, I had already gone to the company dormitory. Right after that, I received a call from my mom. As soon as I answered, her voice was urgent. Song Lin, where have you run off to? There was a child crying on the other end of the line, and I calmly said, I moved out. How can you move out? What will happen to this child if you move out? It seems my mother and the others went to the clinic and confirmed that this child is Song Shui's, and that scoundrel Huang Mingzheng indeed delivered Song Shui's baby. I just don't understand why they have to keep targeting me. Mom, what does this child have to do with me? It's not like I gave birth to it. The top priority is to find the child's father. I can't talk anymore. I have to get to work. Hanging up now. After hanging up the phone, I went about my work as usual. Just then, Sister Chen from the office quietly approached me. Song Lin, do you have a boyfriend? I can introduce you to someone. I was about to refuse, but then I changed my mind. Sure, Sister Chen, who are you going to introduce me to? My nephew. 3 years older than you, a veteran, now runs his own small restaurant. Would you like to have lunch together? I agreed without hesitation, and Sister Chen was overjoyed, immediately going to call her nephew. In my previous life, I raised a child, and Sister Chen, seeing how exhausted I was, introduced me to many freelance jobs and also advised me to find a man, but at the time, I was afraid my child would suffer, so I didn't agree. Looking back now, I realize how foolish I was. I met Chen Fan for a meal, and we both had a good impression of each other. We exchanged WeChat and decided to spend some time getting to know each other. When Sister Chen came back and asked me, I nodded and said, not bad, let's see how it goes. She was overjoyed. Let me tell you, if it works out, he won't treat you badly. I've watched this kid grow up. He can endure hardship. My face flushed, and Sister Chen grew even more excited. And so, Chen Fan and I started dating. For half a month straight, my parents didn't look for me, and I didn't go back, but I never expected that my mom would actually come to the company. I was at work that day when the security guard suddenly called me. Song Lin, come out quickly, your mom left your son at our security post. Hurry up and take the child away, he's making a lot of noise. As soon as he said that, my mind went blank. What child? I'm not even married. Where would I have a son? Don't talk nonsense. I deliberately raised my voice, and everyone in the office heard it. The security guard was speechless. How would I know? Just come down and see for yourself. After hanging up the phone, everyone looked at me. What's going on, Songlin? I don't know. The security guard said someone claiming to be my mother brought my son here. Sister Chin couldn't help but exclaim, is that so? That's really something new. Come on, let's go take a look together. Yeah. Is this some kind of setup or what? Songlin has a son. I never saw her pregnant. Maybe she had him a few years ago. Who knows? Young people these days, their private lives are such a mess. Hearing this, Sister Chin also looked at me with suspicion. I pretended to be completely clueless, and Sister Chin couldn't tell either. When we reached the guard post and saw that baby, everyone was stunned. Sister Chin breathed a sigh of relief. How could this possibly be Songlin's child? This baby looks like it hasn't even reached a month old. Exactly, who could be so malicious? If it were a child a few years old, Songlin would never be able to clear her name. This is ruining someone's reputation. I sneered inwardly, and the security guard was speechless. The person who came claimed to be Songlin's mother, but I don't know for sure. Upon hearing this, I asked him to check the surveillance footage, only to realize that the person who brought the child was someone I didn't recognize. I immediately came up with an idea. Call the police. This woman is not my mother, and I don't know her. Everyone was still a bit hesitant, so I spread my hands and said, this is an abandoned baby. I work in sales, and I've handed out countless business cards. Who knows who's pretending to be my mother? I'm not going to raise someone else's son. Everyone thought it made sense, so we called the police. When the officers arrived, they took the child away. I even made a point of asking, where are you taking him? Where else? If we can't find his parents, he'll have to go to an orphanage. Hearing the definite answer, I felt a wave of relief in my heart. In this lifetime, I will never raise such an ungrateful person again. Just after the police left, I received a WeChat message from my mother. Lin, your sister has contacted us. She said she's going out to work. We're getting old and really don't have the strength to raise her anymore. Please treat her as your own child. I immediately replied, Mom, what are you talking about? I already have a boyfriend. I'll have my own children when I get married in the future. I absolutely will not keep this child. I didn't mention what happened today, and she didn't bring it up either, so I pretended not to know. Chin Fan was indeed very good to me. Half a year later, we got engaged, on our wedding day. I invited my parents and relatives. After that, we applied to transfer to a branch office, and Chin Fan's restaurant moved there as well. From then on, except for holidays, I never went back. Even if I go back, it's just a hurried visit before leaving again. I gave birth to a daughter, and 2 years later, I had a son, completing the perfect family. My son has been clever since he was young, and at 15, he was admitted to Tsinghua University's special program for gifted youth. When the news came, the whole family was overjoyed. Chin Fan went all out, taking the children and us back to our hometown to host a celebration banquet. All the relatives and friends came, even my parents. Although my son Chin Mingyuan is only 15, he is tall and big, looking about the same size as my daughter. This led my parents to believe the child was Songshua's. My mother took my son's hand and patted it, saying, if Xiaoxue knew how promising the child is, how happy she would be, Mom. On such a happy occasion, why bring up Xiaoxue? Has she come back? My mother's eyes immediately flickered. No, she hasn't come back. Sigh, it's been so many years, and she hasn't come back to see you too. I'm afraid something might have happened. I've heard that those who vanish into thin air are basically never found again. Over the years, I've heard plenty of relatives gossiping about Songshue, thanks to my deliberate efforts and spreading the word among the neighbors. Everyone knows that Songshue ran off after giving birth and never shows up during holidays or festivals, so everyone assumed that Songshue had vanished into thin air, but only I knew that my parents had been secretly in touch with her all along. Hearing me say this, my mother immediately looked displeased, her sharp voice cutting through the entire hall. What nonsense are you talking? Songshue is alive and well. Instantly, everyone around turned to look, and my mother was left feeling awkward and embarrassed. I smiled and said, it seems you're still in touch with Xiaoxue. Mom, why hasn't she gone to find her son? Alas, abandoning her own son, she must not be doing well. Forget it. On such a joyous day, I won't talk about her anymore. Upon hearing this, my mother immediately breathed a sigh of relief. However, she opened her mouth as if to say something, and I waited, hoping she would offer an explanation, yet, she remained silent. And the last bit of hope in my heart vanished completely. In my previous life, when the ungrateful one achieved fame and success, Songshue returned. This time is no different. I know she will definitely come today, though I'm not entirely sure when. But now, I no longer care, because my son has been admitted to the Gifted Youth program. And Tsinghua University has sent teachers over, along with reporters. All eyes were now focused on our table. My son also took the stage as the main character of the day, and when he stood up there, my parents didn't realize at all that he was only 15 years old, and that bastard child of Sangshui they were talking about, if he were still alive, would be about 18 years old this year. They didn't realize this, and now they were frequently looking down at their phones. I sneered inwardly, tightly holding Chen Fan's hand, and we exchanged a knowing smile. My son stood on the stage and said clearly, getting into Tsinghua University, I am most grateful to my mom. Without her support and understanding, I definitely wouldn't have achieved what I have today. Mom, come up here quickly. My son waved at me. I straightened my skirt and was about to go up when I heard a sharp shout. She is not your mother. She doesn't deserve to stand up there. Hearing this, everyone looked toward the source of the voice, and I also breathed a sigh of relief. It had finally come. I turned to look at the newcomer. It was Sangshui, standing beside a big boss wearing a gold chain. She's here. She's finally here. I couldn't suppress the tension in my heart. It had been over a decade since we last met, and she still looked the same, but the difference was that she seemed to have lived a very tiring life over these years. Far worse than mine, beneath the heavy makeup. Wrinkles were visible at the corners of her eyes. At that moment, she walked over, holding the middle-aged man's arm. My son, Chen Mingyuan, frowned tightly and asked, Who are you? This is your aunt, Sangshui. I took the initiative to pick up the conversation, announcing her identity. Sangshui was overwhelmed with emotion. You're lying, Songlin, child. I am your biological mother. Upon hearing this, the entire room erupted in an uproar, with everyone looking at me in shock. My son even raised his eyebrows and said, You're the one talking nonsense, Auntie. I am my mother's biological child. You gave birth to a son and then ran away, and that child was raised by my grandparents. I have never avoided the topic of Sangshui's existence because when the children were young, they asked me about their grandparents. I told them directly that the two elders were indeed alive, but I didn't want to go back. I also told them about Sangshui giving birth and how they forced me to adopt the child, so the Chen family knows all about the grievances between Sangshui and me. At this moment, Sangshui started crying. Son, she lied to you. She lied to you. After I gave birth, I had the doctor take the child to the Song family and asked your grandparents to look after him, but your mother stole you away. For all these years, she hasn't come back because she was afraid you would be found. Sister, why did you do this? All these years, I've been searching for my child. You can't separate us like this. Upon hearing this, everyone looked at her. Sangshui cried uncontrollably, but soon realized something was wrong. She looked up and saw everyone staring at her with contempt, and immediately grew anxious. Why don't you believe me? It really was her. That can't be right. And Huang stepped forward at that moment. Sangshui, you shouldn't talk nonsense. Back then, Huang Mingzhong brought the child over, claiming he was Songlin's son. After Songlin beat him, he changed his story and said it was your child. In the end, the police were even called, and he finally admitted that you ran off after giving birth and left the child with your parents. How could the two elderly folks possibly raise him? So they ended up abandoning the child. Upon hearing this, Sangshui was stunned. My mother immediately stood up. I didn't throw it away. I had someone deliver it to Songlin's company, and Huang curled her lips. I went to Songlin's wedding, and I didn't see any child. That's right, old Song, you two can't talk nonsense. My mother grew anxious right away. I had someone deliver it to Songlin's company. Xiaoshui, don't be confused. Your sister has been raising your child for so many years. You should thank her. Look at how wonderful this child is. Getting into Tsinghua University. My mom was truly afraid this situation couldn't be resolved, especially when she saw the look in my eyes. For no reason, she felt a sudden fear and immediately changed her tune. Sangshui immediately wiped her tears and turned to me. Sister, it seems I misunderstood, but son, I really am your biological mother. My son looked at her in astonishment, then glanced at me. You're talking nonsense. I'm not your son. My mother-in-law also stepped forward and slapped her across the face. What nonsense are you talking? That's my daughter-in-law's child, born after 10 months of pregnancy. There are records from the prenatal checkups all the way to the delivery. She nearly lost her life from heavy bleeding during childbirth, and we had to pull all sorts of strings to get her treated at the provincial hospital. How dare you claim my grandson is yours? Have you no shame? My father-in-law also stepped forward and angrily shouted, If you keep spouting nonsense, I'll call the police and have you arrested. Sangshui's lips trembled, her face swollen and red from the beating. She cowered timidly, then suddenly looked at me. I raised an eyebrow, and she quickly caught on. It's you, Songlin. You're the one who faked it. The man beside her spoke gruffly. Your family is well off now. I hear you've even opened a restaurant in the provincial capital. All these things can be faked. The only thing that can prove it is a paternity test. We'll take the child for a paternity test, and then everything will be clear, but my son was unwilling. My in-laws were protecting us, and my parents were helping Songshua. Linlin, just give the child back to your younger sister. Yes, Xiaoshua has had such a hard time outside all these years. Don't you have 2 children? Just give the child back to her. At that moment, everyone looked over and started discussing. What on earth is going on? Did they snatch someone else's child and now don't want to give them back after raising them? How can you just sever over a decade of affection so easily? After all, the 2 sisters are still family. Nonsense. They already said it's their own biological child. How could they possibly give them away? Songshua, you keep insisting that the son is yours, but do you have any proof? Does the child have any birthmarks? Mom, did you see with your own eyes that I accepted that child? Both of them looked stunned. I sneered. I forgot to tell you, my son is only 15 this year, and he got into Tsinghua University's youth class. Your son is probably 18 years old. The age doesn't match. You've mistaken him for your son. Upon hearing this, everyone came to their senses. Yes, Mingyuan is 15 years old. I went to his full month celebration when he was just a month old. Right, I remember now. Mingyuan is the younger brother. The child Songlin had in her 3rd year of marriage. Old Song. Back then, Songlin didn't invite you all to go. Yes, I remember that too. At that moment, my parents' faces were indescribably grim. Songshua staggered back 2 steps, her face filled with disbelief. You're talking nonsense. I get it now. You deliberately reported the child's age as younger just to avoid giving it back to me. Everyone sneered. Saying Songshua had gone mad. As soon as the words were spoken, a teacher from Tsinghua University stepped forward. You're the one talking nonsense. If that were truly the case, the admission qualification for Tsinghua University's Gifted Youth program would be revoked immediately. I will definitely report this matter to the Ministry of Education. Additionally, we will call the police to investigate thoroughly, especially since Chen Mingyuan was only 15 years old when he applied. At that moment, my son also took out his ID card. I am willing to undergo a paternity test with you, and I am also willing to report this matter to the police. However, if I am not your son, you will bear the consequences. I will never forgive you for spreading rumors, slandering, and defaming my mother. Mingyuan is the child I carried for 10 months and gave birth to. He has been sensible and filial since childhood, and my in-laws have always treated me well. My daughter even stood by my side, saying, "You're just talking about my mother without any evidence except for your words. My mother has the birth certificate, household registration, and ID card. What do you have?" My mother's face instantly turned pale. She looked at me and said, "You're lying, Linlin. If Mingyuan is really your child, then, what about Xiaoshua's son?" I spread my hands, probably at the welfare center. I pretended to suddenly realize, that's right, 18 years ago. When I was at work, there was indeed a day when the security guard told me that someone claimed to be my mother and wanted to bring my son over for me to take away. After I came down, I checked the surveillance footage and realized I didn't know that person at all, so I called the police. The police took the child away, probably to the welfare center. My colleagues can confirm this. If you don't believe me, you can check the police report. Upon hearing this, Songshua screamed and lunged at me, but I was quick to react and slapped her. "How dare you hit me, Songlin? Give me back my son." I sneered coldly. "You beast, you ran off after giving birth to a bastard and pinned the child on me, expecting me to raise him for you. You spent over a decade living it up outside, and now that you see my son has made something of himself, you come back to reap the rewards. Let me tell you, you don't have that kind of luck. How could a slacker like you give birth to a top student like my son? Dream on. Why don't you ask your mother who she had delivered the child to my company in the first place, and why she didn't bring the child herself?" My mother panicked. Meeting Songshua's gaze, she quickly explained, I was afraid Linlin wouldn't want to see me, so I paid someone I didn't know to deliver the child. I was hiding nearby, and I clearly saw Linlin holding the child." She suddenly looked at me. "Songlin, how could you be so heartless as to send the child away? That's your own nephew, that's your own grandson, and you didn't even care." Songshua screamed hysterically, "All of you shut up. My son is Jin Mingyuan. It's him. It must be you, Songlin, who's lying to me." The gold chain-wearing man beside her also said in a low voice, "How could my son, Li Guizhu, end up in a welfare home?" Songshua, "If you don't give me an explanation for this, I won't let you off." At this point, Songshua also panicked, and I took out my phone to call the police. Even when the police arrived, there was nothing they could do. Songshua threw a tantrum, and in the end, I agreed to undergo a paternity test, and an expedited one at that. After that, my son went back to continue attending his college celebration banquet. I assured the Tsinghua University teacher that there would absolutely be no mistake. All his documents were genuine. 2 hours later, the paternity test results came out. Upon receiving them, Sam Shui immediately broke down. I was the child's biological mother. Sam Shui couldn't stay calm anymore. She looked up at me with an expression of disbelief. You really sent my child to an orphanage? I shrugged my hands. Who knows where this stray child came from? How could I keep and raise it myself? I've told you countless times, if you hand it over to the police, they'll definitely send it to an orphanage. If he's lucky, he'll stay at the orphanage. And you'll still be able to see him. If he's unlucky, he might get adopted halfway through. If I were you, I'd hurry to the orphanage to check on him right now. Before she could even react, Li Guozhu slapped her hard across the face, sending her crashing to the ground. You wretched woman, you promised to leave me a child, but now I don't even know where the child is, you wretch. Li Guozhu raised his foot and kicked her hard. Sang Shui screamed in pain. And her parents rushed over to protect her, but they were no match for Li Guozhu. It was only then that my mother remembered me. She turned and grabbed my hand, saying, Lin, think of something quickly. Do you want to watch your sister get beaten to death? I shook off her hand. Didn't you also stand by and watch as my sister pushed me to the brink? If I didn't have evidence today, I would have been labeled a child thief, and I would have become a human trafficker. We're both your children. Why are you treating me like this? My mother grew anxious. Why are you being so calculative? We're all family, and you're so well off. What's the harm in taking care of one more? I shouldn't have held any illusions about them. I shook off her hand. Sorry, I can't help. Either you call the police, but I'm not getting involved in this matter anymore. After obtaining the paternity test results, I directly addressed the police. Today's incident requires her to publicly apologize and compensate for emotional damages. She disrupted my son's college celebration banquet, and I won't let her off the hook. Chen Fan then called a lawyer to handle the matter. While we hurried back to attend our child's celebration banquet, the teacher from Tsinghua University also breathed a sigh of relief upon seeing the paternity test results. That's good. At least my son's future won't be ruined. After the banquet ended, our family returned to the shop. Chen Fan had also bought a house here. The next day, my parents called me, crying and saying, Lin, come quickly, let's go to the orphanage together. Okay, please, for my sake, come and help your sister, she's about to be beaten to death. Hearing this, I glanced at Chen Fan, and he nodded at me, so I agreed and went with him to the orphanage. When we met, Sam Shui's face was covered in injuries, bruised and swollen. She shot a venomous glare at me. I sneered coldly. All of this was brought on by Sang Shui herself. It had nothing to do with me. When we arrived at the welfare home, the staff there told us that the child had run away long ago. Ran away? What do you mean? Sang Shui looked shocked. He was involved in petty theft, stealing things multiple times. After graduating from vocational school, he didn't continue his studies and started dating instead. If you're looking for him, you can find him at a fried rice stall on the snack street. When we rushed to the snack street to inquire, we saw Li Xiaojun sitting behind a small stall playing games. In front of him was a woman with a big belly, busy frying rice. There was also a child at the woman's feet, only 3 years old. Seeing this scene, I couldn't help but be stunned. He himself was only 18 years old, yet his child was already 3 years old. How could this be acceptable? Looking at the woman's age, she was probably in her 30s. Sang Shui stumbled over and asked, Are you Li Xiaojun? Without looking up, he replied, Yes. What's the matter? The woman frying rice looked suspiciously at Sang Shui. Who are you? And who are you? I'm his woman. Who are you? Sang Shui was furious. Li Xiaojun is only 18, and you must be over 30. The woman banged the pot loudly. So what? See this belly is carrying his child. What about this child? The one on the floor is from my ex-husband. Sang Shui was about to faint. You've even been divorced, you old woman. Hearing this, the fried rice woman slapped Sang Shui across the face with a ladle. Damn it, how dare you call me an old woman? I think you're the old one. You got beaten black and blue, and you still have the nerve to come here and laugh at me, Li Xiaojun. Are you dead or what? Someone dares to call your wife an old woman. Go beat her up. Li Xiaojun scrambled to his feet and, without a word, slapped Sang Shui across the face, leaving her stunned. Then Li Guozhu rushed out. What the hell are you doing, kid? Seeing the big gold chain, Li Xiaojun immediately backed down, hiding behind the woman. Someone like you is my son, don't get it wrong. I compared the photo I took from the orphanage with Li Xiaojun, and it was indeed him. That's right. Li Xiaojun, these are your biological parents. Li Xiaojun looked at them with a bewildered expression. How is that possible? If you don't believe it, you can go for a paternity test. Did you see the clothes your dad and mom are wearing? They have money. At this moment, Li Xiaojun's eyes lit up, and he quickly pulled the woman over. See, this is my dad and mom. The child in your belly will be blessed in the future. I'm sorry. I didn't recognize you earlier. My apologies. Sangshua looked at them with immediate disgust and stammered, "Impossible, how could you be my son? I love stirring up trouble and never shy away from drama. Sangshua, how could you do this? You haven't come home for over a decade, and now that you're back, you're looking for your biological son. How can you deny him when he's right in front of you?" Chinfan chimed in, adding fuel to the fire. "You keep saying your son is the best, and now he's right here in front of you. Don't say things like that, it'll hurt the child's feelings." Sangshua was so angry with the two of us that she nearly fainted. I took the opportunity to nudge Li Xiaojun and said, "Hurry up and find a place for your dad and mom to treat you to a meal. While you're at it, get a paternity test done. It's time to return to your roots." Last night, Chinfan had already asked someone to look into Li Guizhu's background. His big gold chain was fake. And Li Guizhu wasn't some businessman, he was just a freeloader and a slacker. Over all these years, he hasn't achieved anything, he just wanted to come and take my family's money. What he didn't expect was that I never gave him the chance. Now, seeing his own biological son in this state, he was instantly stunned, but I wasn't about to let him off the hook. It wasn't until both parties received the results at the paternity testing center that I finally felt at ease. Bad genes should stay together. My parents were also dumbfounded. The red-haired punk standing before them already had a child, and this woman is a second marriage. They trembled with anger. They sent them back to their parents' old house, then turned around and left with Chinfan. Sangshua panicked. It was too late to say anything now. Li Xiaojun was convinced they had money and moved into his parents' house with his wife. Even if Sangshua returned, there was no place for her. And all 7 family members were crammed into that small house, and Huan told me that their family was in complete turmoil. Li Xiaojun wanted to get married and demanded a bride price of 200,000 yuan from them. The woman was relentless and also insisted on a meeting gift, which added up to over 300,000 yuan in total. How could they possibly afford that? Originally, the two of them had achieved nothing and were just trying to take advantage of me. They never expected that I had prepared in advance and returned their worthless, uneducated son to them. No matter what they say, they are unwilling and filled with regret, but I'm not some easy target, so I won't bother with them. When Li Xiaojun realized he couldn't get the money, he took a stick and beat Li Guizhu. When my parents tried to intervene, they were also struck. My father collapsed on the spot and lost consciousness, while my mother was pushed down the stairs and broke her leg. Sangshua wanted to run, but Li Xiaojun broke her arm. When I went to the hospital, I saw them lying there, groaning in pain. My mother grabbed my hand and said, Lin, I was wrong. Can you help? Please drive him away." "Mom, how can that be? That's Xiaoshua's own son, your own grandson. He became like this in the first place because he had no father or mother to teach him. You must give him all your love and guide him back onto the right path." Upon hearing this, my mother was utterly devastated. I withdrew my hand, paid her medical bill, and then didn't bother with her anymore. Sangshua, in too much pain to lift her arm, asked me for money, but I didn't hesitate to kick her away. "You have nothing to do with me, Sangshua. Yesterday, you ruined my son's college celebration and slandered me. We haven't settled that score yet. Now you still want money from me. Dream on. As for my parents' living expenses, I'll only pay the minimum required. I won't take care of anything else. In my previous life, I died because of their schemes, and in this life, I will never be fooled again." After I left, my father and mother were still crying behind me, and Huang would occasionally bring news about them, saying that Li Xiaojun stubbornly refused to leave their home. And my parents had become his caretakers. That woman gave birth to a child, a boy, and now they were even less able to leave. Li Xiaojun would frequently ask them for money, and if they refused, he would resort to violence. Sangshua was also forced by him to set up a street stall. In short, the entire family worked to support his spending. It's wonderful to see this family rotting together. 6 months later, Chinfan and I returned to our hometown to handle some property matters. We planned to sell the house and settle down in the capital with our son and daughter. I saw Sangshua. It had only been half a year, but she had aged over a decade, her hair already turning gray. When she saw me, she rushed forward abruptly. "Song Lin, it shouldn't be like this. It shouldn't be. You didn't jump to your death. All your money should be mine. It should all be mine." She chased after my car, screaming her heart out, while a cold smile curled at the corner of my lips. She had been reborn too, but unfortunately, the timing of her rebirth was all wrong. In this life, she can no longer harm me. Let her spend the rest of her days with her worthless son. After hearing the 2 stories above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Looking forward to hearing from you. If you liked this story, don't forget to like it, share it, and subscribe to my channel. See you next time.